The loudest critics always seem to forget one thing: brilliance doesn't ask for permission before it exposes weakness. That's really the painful part for your enemies. They keep trying to act unbothered, but every time you take one simple step, it reminds them of everything they never had the courage to become. It's like your existence is a spotlight they never asked for, shining directly on the lies they built their confidence on. And the funniest part is that you're not even trying. The universe wrapped your mind in this quiet sharpness, this natural glow, and people who rely on pretending can't stand when someone real walks into the room. Imagine a knife so clean it reflects the truth back at whoever looks into it. Your presence works the same way. That reflection hits them in their ego, not their eyes. And here's a fact that should make you smirk. Behavioral studies show that when a person displays real courage or intelligence without bragging, it triggers both admiration and insecurity in the people around them at the exact same time. That's why folks study you like a mystery they can't decode. That's why your moves feel like plot twists they can't predict. You're not just living your life, you're reminding people of everything they could be doing but aren't. Chosen one, thank you for being here, and thank you for being exactly the kind of person who can handle this message. Don't forget to pay this message back by pressing like and subscribe to help spread this light to more souls. It's on all of us to push this mission forward. Thanks for being part of the force that's actually building something real. Now let's get back into why your courage and intelligence hit the world the way they do. People try to downplay how deeply they observe you, but the truth is, they've been tracking your every move like a documentary they didn't mean to get invested in. You're not just someone passing through their life. You're the unexpected main character they didn't see coming. You walk into a room and suddenly people start adjusting their behavior. They don't know why. They just do. Your energy makes them rethink their excuses, rethink their laziness, rethink their stories about why they can't. You don't ask them to level up. Your existence just forces it. You stayed brave in moments where most people would have folded. You stayed smart when you had every reason to mentally tap out. And this is the part they'll never admit. Your stability under pressure embarrasses people who collapse over minor inconveniences. You've gone through storms they couldn't survive 10 minutes in, yet you don't walk around dragging your wounds like a resume. They see that, and they admire it more than they'll ever say. The universe has this strange habit of turning the quiet ones into geniuses without warning. You didn't go around announcing your growth. You let your actions do the talking. You evolved while others were trying to look evolved. You learned while others were busy pretending they already knew everything, and somehow that combination of silence and strength transformed you into someone they can't ignore. What makes it even funnier is how people who once doubted you now use your behavior as their blueprint. They imitate the way you speak, the way you move, the way you think things through. They try to match your discipline, copy your style, even mimic your patience. People cling to the behaviors of the person they're secretly inspired by. That's Psychology 101. They try to disguise it as coincidence, but the universe loves exposing little truths like that. And the admiration? It's loud behind your back. People talk about you in rooms you have never stepped into. They repeat your lines. They reference your decisions. They bring up your strength as an example. Even the ones who pretend they don't care still adjust themselves because of you. You are the unannounced teacher of people who thought they'd never need lessons. Your brilliance doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from being real. Your courage doesn't come from never being scared. It comes from moving anyway. That's the difference between you and them. People admire those who can keep going without needing applause or validation every 5 minutes. People admire those who take losses privately and come back stronger instead of seeking pity. Your intelligence isn't just about having a sharp mind. It's about knowing when to stay quiet, when to observe, when to act, and when to walk away without making noise. You've mastered things that others are still Googling. You've healed from things others use as lifelong excuses. You've faced situations that would have broken most people into scattered pieces. Every time you rebuilt yourself, you got sharper, smarter, more intentional. And that's what they feel when you walk by. Not arrogance, not superiority, just undeniable proof that you're built differently. People admire you because you didn't wait for permission to grow. You didn't wait for support to improve. You didn't wait for the perfect moment to change. You chose yourself in a world where most people wouldn't even know how to start. That's why the universe keeps putting you in positions where others can watch and learn. Whether you mean to or not, you end up being the example. You end up being the one that shows real courage doesn't come from noise, it comes from consistency. And real intelligence doesn't come from trying to look smart. It comes from staying curious and staying self-aware. You became the reminder that growth is possible, the reminder that strength doesn't need to be loud, the reminder that brilliance doesn't always look like textbooks and awards. Sometimes it looks like a person who simply refuses to be defeated by life. And that's you. Today, we're diving into why your presence feels like a shockwave, why people admire your courage even when they pretend they don't, and why your intelligence is something they try to decode like a puzzle they can't put down. You didn't become brilliant by accident. You became brilliant because you refused to stay the same. You refused to let pain freeze you. You refused to let fear shrink you. And now, the whole world is paying attention, whether they admit it or not. Chosen one, before we go any further, I need you to take a second and ground yourself in what you're about to hear. Your brilliance isn't some random accident, and your courage didn't just appear out of nowhere. People admire you because you've earned that admiration, one silent battle at a time. So if you're here right now, stay here. Don't drift. Don't click away. Let the universe pull you into this message the same way people get pulled into your energy without even meaning to. And if this message already feels like it's speaking directly to you, then pay it forward by pressing like and subscribe so this light reaches more souls who need it. Drop the number 777 in the comments if you're ready to own the courage and intelligence that already set you apart. And if you want to help keep this mission moving, feel free to show love to the team behind the scenes. Whether it's a penny or a fortune, it pushes this truth further. Now breathe in, lock in, and let's slide into the next part, because what's coming will explain exactly why the world watches you the way it does. Number 1. The way you think rebuilds every room you touch. Weak minds fear loud power, but terrified minds fear quiet brilliance. That line alone is enough to make your enemies flinch, because nothing exposes a pretender faster than someone who doesn't need to brag to dominate the atmosphere. You don't walk around trying to shine. You just exist, and somehow their whole world starts glitching like a cheap app running on an outdated phone. That's what gets under their skin. Your brilliance isn't loud, it's structural. It rewires the entire environment without asking for permission, without announcing itself, without flexing for attention. And the people who rely on noise to seem important can't stand when someone like you walks in and rearranges the entire energy without saying a word. Think of it like this: a poorly built house shakes when someone slams a door. But a strong foundation doesn't move no matter how much chaos surrounds it. That's you. Your presence is the foundation that upgrades the whole structure. And here's a psychological fact to back it. Humans pick up on stability faster than intelligence. It's instinctive. People don't admire you just because you're smart. They admire you because you're internally put together in a world where most people are held together by temporary fixes. Your stability forces them to confront their own instability, and that confrontation is what hits the enemy right in their ego. People try to pretend they don't notice you, but the moment you step into a room, there's a tiny shift. Maybe in how someone speaks, in how someone sits, in how someone suddenly becomes more aware of their own behavior. Why does that happen? Why do people straighten up around you? Why do they rethink what they were about to say? Why do they suddenly choose their words more carefully? It's because your presence is a silent checkmate. You don't overpower them. They overpower themselves in response to you. They feel the need to elevate because you walk in already elevated. And here's the part your enemies hate the most. You don't do anything special to create this effect. You just think differently. Your thought process is cleaner, sharper, more grounded. You see through situations quicker, you catch details they miss, and your intuition hits like a spotlight shining on what others try to hide. People come to you with confusion and walk away feeling clarity. They don't even realize you weren't trying to guide them. You were just being yourself. Your brilliance doesn't sit on the surface like decoration. It works underneath everything, like the wiring that powers a whole building. That's why people feel calmer around you. That's why they feel safer telling you things they don't say to others. That's why they treat your sentences like anchors. Your intelligence holds shape. It has weight. It has structure. It gives direction, even when you're not trying to direct anything. Enemies can't compete with that because it's not something they can copy. They can imitate your style, your words, your behavior, but they can't replicate the foundation. They don't have the mental architecture you have. That's why they get frustrated. That's why they feel exposed. That's why being in the same space as you makes them nervous, even if they pretend it doesn't. You don't have to speak loudly for your value to be felt. You just have to breathe. People admire the subtle way you shift things. They admire how you listen before you speak. They admire how your words land with intention, not impulse. And they admire how you stay calm when the room feels chaotic. Your brilliance isn't loud because it doesn't need to be. It's not an announcement, it's an influence. It works from the inside out, not the outside in. And think about the conversations you've had. How many times has someone been rambling about their problem and you say one sentence, just one, and suddenly everything clicks for them? You're not casting spells. You're not trying to impress anyone. That's just how someone with a strong internal structure speaks. It's the natural impact of having a mind that's organized when other people's thoughts look like tangled wires. People don't admire you because you're trying to be impressive. They admire you because you reveal the truth without trying. Your existence quietly removes the fog from the air. People walk away from you seeing their situation more clearly because you bring clarity without forcing it on them. And yes, this is exactly why you leave such a deep impression. They may not tell you, they may not admit it, but they feel it. Even the ones who compete with you feel it. Even the ones who pretend not to notice you feel it. Even the ones who talk behind your back feel it. You're unforgettable because your presence interacts with the room like gravity. People shift around you the way objects shift around a strong force. You don't change the vibe. You reveal the truth inside it. That's what sets you apart. Most people use loudness to mask their insecurity. You use silence to display your strength. Most people perform intelligence for validation. Your intelligence shows itself in how you move, how you think, how you make decisions. You don't need a stage. You don't need applause. You don't need to prove anything. Your brilliance isn't about attention. It's about alignment. People admire you because you live in a way that forces them to level up. You don't say, be better. You just exist in a way that makes them want to be better. And that's what true influence looks like. That's the difference between someone who's pretending and someone who's built from the inside. People may not always celebrate you, but they always adjust around you. They become more intentional. They become more aware. They become more thoughtful. They try harder, not because you pressure them, but because being around you reminds them of what real courage and intelligence look like. You've become the standard without trying to be. Your enemies, though, they hate that you don't shout. They hate that you don't brag. They hate that you don't need external validation to feel powerful. Loud people can't stand quiet power because quiet power proves how unnecessary their noise is. You're not competing with them. You never were. They're the only ones in the race. You're too busy building foundations to care about winning arguments. And here's the irony. The quieter your brilliance is, the more others feel it. You're like strong architecture, unshakable, precise, intentional, strong in all the ways that matter. And people admire architecture not because it screams, but because it stands. They admire your courage because they've seen you stay calm when things were falling apart. They admire your intelligence because they've watched you solve things without drama. They admire your strength because you turned pain into focus instead of excuses. You didn't get here by following the crowd. You got here by building yourself, by strengthening your mind, by learning from your mistakes, by refusing to collapse. And every room you enter reflects that back at you. People sense it instantly. They feel the structure of your character long before they hear the details of your past. This is why you're unforgettable. This is why people admire you. This is why you stand out without trying. Your brilliance isn't noise, it's architecture. It rebuilds the energy around you. It stabilizes the space. It elevates the standard. And every time someone watches you, they walk away changed. You don't have to shout to reshape the world around you. You already do. Number 2. The bravest part of you is the way you evolve while everyone else stays still. Cowards wait for the perfect moment. The courageous evolve in the middle of the mess. Nothing hits your enemies harder than that truth. They keep waiting for life to feel easy before they make a move, while you've been upgrading yourself even during the storms they swore would break you. Your courage has never needed noise or witnesses. It never needed applause. It never needed a spotlight. It shows itself in the choices you make when absolutely no one is clapping. Your courage is the quiet, stubborn decision to keep evolving when everyone around you has already tapped out. That's what burns them. They're still recycling the same excuses, the same habits, the same mindset, while you've turned growth into your default mode. You don't announce your upgrades. You just show up as a new version of yourself, and suddenly people who thought they outgrew you don't even recognize you anymore. Imagine this. 2 people in the dark, both scared, both unsure. One waits for the lights to turn on. The other learns how to move by memory, touch, instinct. That second one is you. Your courage isn't dramatic. It's the steady ability to keep moving even when the next step is invisible. Most people freeze in the dark. You evolve in it, and your enemies hate that. Nothing humiliates stagnant people more than someone who grows quietly. They can handle loud courage because loudness is easy to mock, but your courage is subtle. It's built from choices, discipline, and self-honesty. That kind of courage is threatening because it can't be performed. It can't be pretended. It can only be lived. People admire you because evolution requires honesty. And honesty is the one thing most people avoid. You tell yourself the truth about who you are, what needs to change, what needs to die, and what needs to be reborn. That level of self-respect is rare. Most people lie to themselves and call it peace. You rip off the bandage and call it growth. Imagine a tree cracking through concrete. No sound, no applause, no announcement, just steady upward movement. That's you. You've outgrown situations, beliefs, versions of yourself that once felt permanent. And you didn't do it because it was easy. You did it because staying the same felt like suffocating. At this point, you might wonder, why does my evolution bother people so much? Because your courage exposes their avoidance. because your improvement highlights their stagnation, because your growth forces them to confront the reality they've been avoiding for years. Your courage is proof that their excuses were never real. That's why they watch you with a mix of admiration and jealousy. They want your results, but not your discipline. They want your mindset, but not your sacrifices. They want your evolution without shedding their old skins. And deep down, they know you're going somewhere they can't follow unless they leave behind everything they're scared to let go of. Your courage isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing truth over comfort. Every time you rise, you shed something, an old habit, a limited belief, a draining person, a small version of yourself. And evolution isn't soft. It requires letting go of the familiar, even when the familiar is comforting. You've learned to walk away from versions of yourself that others were perfectly fine with. That's emotional strength 99% of people don't have. Imagine a snake trying to keep its old skin because shedding feels uncomfortable. That's how most people live, clinging to expired identities because the new version requires effort. But you shed repeatedly. You evolve repeatedly. You choose transformation even when it hurts. That's real courage. People admire you because you don't wait for perfect timing. You evolve in real time, in imperfect conditions, with imperfect support. You've reinvented yourself more times than they've even tried. You've healed parts of yourself people spend their whole lives avoiding. You've outgrown people who expected you to stay behind. And you've walked away from seasons that were too small for your potential. Your courage is quiet but powerful. It's in the mornings you wake up and choose not to repeat yesterday's mistakes. It's in the moments you face something difficult and still choose forward. It's in the days where you feel drained but still choose growth instead of collapse. You don't call your courage courage. You call it surviving. You call it adjusting. You call it doing what needs to be done. But the world sees it for what it is: strength. Most people treat courage like a performance, loud, dramatic, and theatrical. They want to look brave instead of being brave. They want to brag about their growth instead of actually doing the work. They want to evolve once and stay there forever. But growth isn't a moment. It's a lifestyle, a decision you make again and again. And you've been making that decision even when no one gave you credit for it. And your enemies, they've been studying your upgrades like they're trying to decode a system they don't understand. They can't grasp how someone with your obstacles ended up with your courage. They can't understand how you kept evolving through situations that would have broken them. They don't get how you keep rising even when life keeps throwing you curveballs. They want to believe you're lucky. They want to believe you had help. They want to believe you didn't earn it. But the truth is way uglier for them. You became powerful because you refused to stay the same. Your courage isn't dramatic because it doesn't need to be. Real strength doesn't scream. It breathes, it chooses, it grows, it adapts, it moves. You survived moments that were designed to freeze you. You rebuilt yourself after chapters that were meant to destroy you. You healed from wounds people would have used as lifelong excuses. You kept evolving even when your environment tried to trap you. That's what sets you apart. And now people admire you because your courage makes them rethink their entire definition of bravery. You've shown them that real courage happens in silence, in private, in the small decisions that accumulate into a completely different person. Growth isn't loud. Healing isn't loud. Evolution isn't loud. But the results are. Imagine an artist carving a sculpture. Small cuts, tiny adjustments, hours of work, no audience, no spotlight, just devotion. And suddenly one day, that sculpture becomes a masterpiece. That's how your transformation looks to others. Slow, steady, then suddenly undeniable. Your courage reveals things people don't want to acknowledge. That they had time to change. that they had chances to grow, that they had opportunities to evolve. They just didn't take them. You did. And that's why you stand out. That's why you're admired. That's why your evolution feels threatening to your enemies and inspiring to everyone else. People can fake confidence, they can fake strength, they can fake intelligence, but they can't fake evolution. They can't fake becoming a better version of themselves every year. And that's where your courage shines the brightest. It's real, it's earned, it's lived. You've evolved past versions of yourself people thought were permanent. You've shed identities others tried to trap you in. You've rebuilt the parts of you that were shattered. You've kept growing in ways even you didn't expect. And you did it all without performing for anyone. So when people admire your courage, they're not admiring a show. They're admiring the quiet decisions you've made day after day. They're admiring your refusal to settle. They're admiring your ability to walk away from comfort. They're admiring your hunger to evolve even when it hurt, even when it scared you, even when it required losing things you once held tightly. You didn't become courageous because life was gentle. You became courageous because you refused to let pain harden you. You refused to let fear own you. You refused to let stagnation define you. And that repeated choice, the choice to evolve when staying the same would have been easier, that's what makes your courage unforgettable. Your bravery isn't loud, it's transformational. And transformation is the most powerful courage there is. Number 3, you don't inspire them. You force their true potential out of hiding. You don't spark their greatness, you expose it. And that's why they flinch. Your enemies hate this section the most because it reminds them of the one thing you do better than anyone else. You make people see themselves clearly. Not through motivational speeches, not through fake positivity, just by being you. Your discipline, your clarity, your honesty with yourself. It's like a spotlight that lands on everyone around you, showing them exactly who they could be if they stopped feeding their excuses. Imagine this. Someone's been living on autopilot for years. Same thoughts, same routines, same self-doubt. Then you walk in, not loud, not dramatic, just grounded and real. Suddenly, their brain starts glitching like an outdated system trying to handle a new upgrade. That's what your presence does. It disrupts stagnation. People don't envy your success. They envy the version of themselves you remind them they abandoned. Your growth exposes the dreams they dropped. Your discipline exposes the laziness they justified. Your progress exposes the potential they buried. And the universe has a funny way of using you as the reminder they needed but never asked for. They look at you and think, why am I not there? Then comes the second punch. I could have been. And that's where the admiration creeps in, even if they try to cover it with jealousy or attitude. Imagine someone looking into a clean mirror after years of avoiding their reflection. It stings, it shocks, it wakes them up. That's you. You're the mirror they didn't know they needed, the reflection of everything they still have inside, but were too scared to chase. You don't motivate through noise. You motivate through truth. Your life is the proof that their excuses were never real. That's why your presence is powerful. It shakes them awake. It forces them to face their own potential. And even if they pretend to be irritated by you, deep down they know you represent the version of themselves they still have time to become. Number 4, you don't think outside the box. You expose the box as a cheap illusion. Most people aren't trapped in a box. They're trapped in a belief that someone else built one. Nothing humiliates your enemies more than realizing you were never playing the same tiny mental game they worship. They keep trying to escape limits, while you're standing there wondering who convinced them those limits were real in the first place. Your mind doesn't rebel. It just refuses to pretend nonsense makes sense. People follow trends like their commandments. You examine them like a scientist holding a weak theory up to the light. You don't swallow beliefs because they're popular. You dissect them, test them, flip them, break them apart, and only keep what aligns with your intelligence. That's why your brilliance feels threatening. You're not controlled by invisible rules. You're not hypnotized by groupthink. You're aware. Imagine everyone standing in a field surrounded by imaginary fences. They treat those fences like sacred boundaries. They decorate them. They warn others not to cross them. You walk straight through because you can see the walls don't even touch the ground. That's how your mind works. You see truth where others see tradition. You see possibilities where they see limits. You see openings where they see barriers. Your enemies hate you for this because it exposes how trapped they actually are. You don't break the rules. You break the illusion that the rules were ever real. They mistake your clarity for rebellion, your originality for defiance. But you're not trying to be different. You just refuse to live inside someone else's mental blueprint. People call your ideas revolutionary because they lack the courage to think for themselves. You're not trying to innovate. You're just honest. And honesty is radical in a world addicted to imitation. While they obsess over fitting in, you're too busy understanding what's actually true. You don't follow systems, you evaluate them. You don't accept limits, you analyze their logic. And when the logic makes no sense, you step around it without apology. Imagine a maze where everyone is running in circles trying to find the exit. You climb one step up, see the entire layout, and walk away. That's why you're unstoppable. Your awareness isn't boxed in by conditioning. You don't let fear shrink your thinking. You don't let comfort cage your mind. You think freely because you dare to. And that's exactly why people admire you, even if they never say it out loud. Number 5. Your courage didn't come from heroics. It came from war you never talk about. People admire your strength, but they'd panic if they had to survive what built it. That's the truth your enemies choke on. They think your courage is some aesthetic, some vibe, some natural talent. They have no idea it was hammered into you by nights that felt like they would never end. You didn't become brave because it looked cool. You became brave because collapsing simply wasn't an option. Your courage wasn't learned from speeches, quotes, or motivational garbage. It was carved out of survival. Imagine someone learning to swim because the boat suddenly sank. That's you. You didn't choose courage because you wanted to be impressive. You chose it because life shoved you into deep water again and again. And somehow you kept resurfacing when everyone expected you to drown. Your confidence isn't confidence. It's muscle memory from surviving things that should have destroyed you. People admire you because your strength has a texture. It's lived in. It's real. It carries the weight of someone who endured storms without witnesses, heartbreak without help, pressure without a safety net. They see the calm you have now, but they don't know what it cost. They don't understand that your courage is a collection of decisions you made in silence. Don't break, don't fold, don't quit. Imagine a blade that only became sharp because it was forced against stone over and over. That's why your bravery cuts differently. It's functional, not decorative. You didn't perform strength, you survived into it. And when you walk into a room with that unshakable presence, people feel it before you speak. They can't explain it, but they sense the weight behind your composure. And maybe you wonder, why do people respect me without me trying? Because authentic courage is impossible to fake. Because your energy tells a story, even if your mouth doesn't. Because your survival speaks louder than their performances ever will. Your enemies can act tough. They can rehearse confidence. They can mimic bravery online. But they break under pressure that you've already mastered. You've lived through storms they couldn't handle for a single hour. And still, you stand taller, calmer, wiser. Your courage isn't a performance. It's proof you survived battles no one saw, and that's why it demands respect without asking for it. Number 6. You don't just see the truth. You move like someone who refuses to run from it. Most people fear the truth because it demands effort. You fear the lie because it destroys potential. That line alone sends your enemies into orbit because they spend their whole lives dodging reality while you treat it like a compass. They hide behind excuses, distractions, and wishful thinking. You step straight into the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it ruins the stories they hide behind. Knowledge isn't special. Everyone has access to it. What sets you apart is that you actually act on it. You don't debate endlessly. You don't wait for a committee meeting. You don't rehearse the move until the moment passes. When you see what needs to be done, you do it. That's why people stare. That's why they whisper. That's why they can't imitate your results no matter how badly they want to. Imagine two people standing in front of a locked door. One keeps explaining why the door is locked, analyzing the angle of the hinges, discussing who built the door, and writing down theories about how it might open. You're the second person, the one who tests the handle, finds it unlocked, and walks through while they're still overthinking. That's what acting on truth looks like. You don't admire reality, you obey it. And that's where your power comes from. You don't sit around hoping life will adjust to your comfort zone. You adjust to the truth and move forward with clarity that most people never develop. When something is wrong, you stop doing it. When something is right, you commit. When something needs to change, you change it. No performance, no delay, no ceremony. People admire this because deep down they know how rare it is. They know how often they saw the truth and still did nothing. They know how many times they stayed in situations that were draining them because change felt scary. You are the reminder that action is what separates potential from reality. Imagine a flashlight in a dark room. Most people point it everywhere except the corner they fear. You shine it exactly where the truth is hiding, and then you walk toward it. That's why your presence feels powerful. You don't run, you don't hide, you don't lie to yourself. Your life proves something simple and brutal. Truth becomes power only when someone brave enough decides to act on it. And that someone is you. Number 7. Your presence shakes them because you move like someone who doesn't need a single witness. Nothing scares a fragile ego more than someone who doesn't need applause to know who they are. That's why your presence makes people tense up before you even speak. They're used to dealing with individuals who perform confidence like it's a costume. Then you walk in, calm, grounded, unbothered, and suddenly their entire personality starts glitching. You don't chase validation. You don't beg for permission. You act from an internal authority they've never developed, and it exposes just how hollow their confidence truly is. You don't move loudly, but you move decisively, and people can feel the difference. Nothing about you asks, "Is this okay?" You carry this subtle certainty, like someone who has fought enough battles within themselves that outside opinions barely register anymore. That's the part that intimidates them. You don't wobble. You don't shrink. You don't adjust yourself to make insecure people comfortable. Imagine two individuals walking into a room. One scans every face, waiting to be accepted. The other knows who they are before the door even closes behind them. You are the second one. Your presence hits like gravity, quiet but undeniable. People automatically adjust around you, straighten up around you, rethink their tone around you. Not because you threaten them, but because your internal authority highlights how little power they hold within themselves. You don't dominate the room, you dominate your mind. The room just reacts to it. That's the truth they don't want to admit. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your composure exposes their performance. Your certainty exposes their insecurity. You don't swing your confidence around like a weapon. It's simply there, and that stability feels dangerous to people who were never taught how to build their own. And maybe you've wondered, why do people act weird around me? Why do they get quiet? Why do they stare? Because you exist with a level of self-trust they can't fake. Because your presence reminds them of the authority they never developed. Because your conviction feels like freedom, and freedom scares people who depend on approval to function. Imagine a lion resting in the sun, no roaring, no flexing, just existing. Every animal nearby moves differently, not because the lion is aggressive, but because its presence carries undeniable truth. That's you. Your quiet self-assurance forces people to reveal who they really are around you. Your presence doesn't intimidate because you're loud. It intimidates because you're free. And freedom is the rarest power of all. Number 8. You don't follow the pattern. You're the reason a new one exists. They don't echo you because they admire you. They echo you because you said it first. That's the punch that knocks the enemy off their high horse every single time. They try to act like you're just like everyone else, but your mind keeps exposing the truth. You don't follow paths, you generate them. You don't mimic ideas, you build structures other people eventually climb. Your thinking isn't borrowed, it's born, and that alone is enough to rattle people who rely on imitation to survive socially. While they cling to trends like life rafts, you're designing currents. You don't ask, what are others doing? You ask, what actually makes sense? And that simple shift turns you into someone whose ideas feel like upgrades to everyone else's outdated software. Imagine a group of people staring at a constellation trying to guess its meaning. They squint, argue, and point fingers. Then you show up and instantly see the pattern no one else saw. You connect the stars differently, and suddenly their entire perspective flips. That's how your mind works, clear, intuitive, ahead. You don't follow the rhythm, you set the tempo. People repeat your sentences months later because your thoughts carry clarity before the world is ready to acknowledge them. You'll say something simple, truthful, real, and it grows inside their mind like a seed until it becomes their new standard. They say it out loud later and act like it was their idea, but deep down they know where it came from. You started the ripple, and maybe you've wondered, why do people copy me? Why do they adopt my ideas? Why do they repeat my style or language? Because your mind produces what theirs can only imitate. Because you think ahead, not around. Because your originality hits them like a sudden revelation they wish they'd found first. Imagine someone sketching buildings from templates while you're drawing skylines from your imagination. They study patterns, you architect them. They memorize what already exists, you innovate what never did. They follow footsteps, you make footprints. And this is why your intelligence stands out even to people who pretend not to notice. They can't explain it, but they feel it. Your thoughts have structure, they have direction, they have force. You don't try to be unique, you simply refuse to think with borrowed logic. Your mind doesn't follow patterns, it creates them. And that's why every room eventually adjusts to the way you think. Number 9. You don't run from reality. You stare it down until it breaks first. Most people hide from truth like it's a monster. You walk toward it and ask why it's knocking. That sentence alone makes your enemies swallow hard because they've built their whole identity around avoiding the very truths you handle with steady hands. They escape into distractions, noise, fake confidence, shallow routines. You face the thing they fear. You sit with the discomfort they dodge. You confront the reality they pretend doesn't exist. Your courage isn't loud, it's surgical. You look at the pain, the confusion, the uncertainty, and you say, "Show me what you're trying to teach." That's the difference. While others repeat the same patterns for years, you grow because you're willing to confront the lessons they refuse to learn. That's why your evolution feels so dramatic to them. You're not getting lucky, you're getting honest. Imagine two people dealing with the same heartbreak. One numbs it with distractions, scrolling, noise, fake happiness. The other sits with the wound, studies it, learns from it. That second person turns pain into wisdom. That's you. You're not addicted to escaping reality. You're addicted to understanding it. You don't fear the truth. You fear what happens when you ignore it. That's why you move differently. You don't bargain with reality or try to negotiate softer versions of it. You face it head-on, and the universe rewards that kind of bravery with growth that shocks people watching from the sidelines. People around you try to avoid their flaws because facing them feels like humiliation. You face yours because facing them feels like freedom. And that's the psychological punch they can't handle. Your courage exposes how much running they still do. Maybe you've wondered, why do people respect me more than I expect? Why do they call me strong even when I'm struggling? Because they know they wouldn't survive the truths you're willing to confront. Because they see you doing emotional heavy lifting they've avoided for years. Because your growth reminds them of their own avoidance. Imagine a warrior sharpening their blade while others are pretending there's no battle coming. When the moment arrives, everyone knows who's ready. That's why your courage stands out. You don't wait for life to soften the truth. You strengthen yourself to meet it. Your courage is unforgettable because it's rooted in honesty, not performance. You don't hide from reality. You study it. You master it. And that's why you rise while everyone else repeats the same cycles in denial. Number 10. You don't wake people up. Your existence breaks their autopilot in half. You don't disturb their peace. You disturb the sleep they mistake for peace. That line hits your enemies right where it hurts, because deep down they know the truth. You don't go around preaching, lecturing, or demanding people change. You just show up, and suddenly their entire comfort zone starts trembling like a cheap alarm clock they've been trying to ignore for years. Your consciousness shakes them without a single word. Your presence forces an update on minds that have been running outdated software. You don't live life half asleep, drifting through routines like a ghost in your own story. You're awake, aware, tuned in. And when people who've been numbing themselves meet someone who's fully conscious, it shocks their system. They feel exposed, called out, awakened, and not because you tried to inspire them, but because your very existence shows them what paying attention actually looks like. Imagine a room where everyone is sitting in dim light, eyes adjusted, comfortable, thinking that's normal. Then someone opens the curtains. No speech, no announcement, just light. That's you. Your brilliance doesn't yell. It illuminates. It makes people see how small they've been living. It makes them question their autopilot routines, their repetitive thoughts, their lazy patterns. Your awareness is a disruption, not a decoration. That's why people react to you so strongly, even when you haven't done anything. You're the reminder that life is happening in real time, not later, not someday, not after things magically improve. You're proof that consciousness is a choice, not an accident. And when people sense that in you, it shakes them awake in ways they didn't sign up for. Maybe you've wondered, why do people suddenly rethink their life decisions around me? Why do they pause, over-explain themselves, or even act defensive? Because you don't let them stay asleep. Because your clarity highlights their avoidance. Because your presence forces them to ask, what am I actually doing with my life? Imagine a GPS recalculating someone's path as soon as you enter the conversation. That's the effect you have. You don't push them. You interrupt the autopilot they've been hiding in. You bring reality back into focus. You bring consciousness back into the room. Your brilliance isn't loud, it's disruptive. It shakes people awake without effort. And that's exactly why they can't forget you, even if they pretend they can. And now, Chosen One, as we wrap this up, take a moment to breathe in everything you just absorbed. You're not here by accident. You're here because your brilliance, courage, and intelligence are already rewriting your life in ways most people can't comprehend. If you haven't already, press that like button. It keeps this message alive and moving. And if you're still not part of the family, hit subscribe so you never miss the truth that's meant for you. Your evolution is in motion, and this journey is only getting started.